Stop for a second and look around you. Really look at the walls of your home, the street outside your window, the city that surrounds you. You have spent years preparing, haven't you? Your bug-out bag is meticulously packed with the finest gear money can buy. Your emergency fund is tucked away in a safe place only you know about. Down in the basement, you have stacked enough freeze-dried meals to feed a small army for 3 months, and you have memorized every turn of the route to that secluded cabin in the mountains. You tell yourself you are ready. You sleep soundly at night, believing that when the world falls apart, you will be the one who makes it out. But I am here to tell you a hard truth that might just save your life. You are not ready. In fact, you might be planning for a scenario that is already impossible. Because all of that preparation, every dollar you spent, every hour you sacrificed watching survival tutorials about water filtration and starting fires in the rain, it is all built on a single fragile assumption that you have never dared to question. You assume that when the chaos begins, when the grid goes dark and society starts to fracture, you will simply be able to open your door, get in your vehicle, and leave. But what if you can't? What if leaving is not an option? What if the state you are living in right now, the very place you call home, the sanctuary you have sworn to defend, is actually a prison without walls? What if it was designed not by some shadowy conspiracy, but by the cold, hard laws of geography and fragile systems architecture to trap you the exact moment the electricity stops flowing? There are 7 specific states in America that are hiding a terrifying secret. This isn't about crime rates, and it certainly isn't about politics. This is a structural problem, a mathematical inevitability. These 7 states fail the most basic test of survival, but on a scale so massive it is almost invisible until you look at the map with the eyes of a strategist. These are places where borders turn into impenetrable barriers, where life-sustaining resources evaporate in hours, where populations exceed the land's carrying capacity by terrifying margins, and where the highways you count on for escape turn into death traps the moment millions of people panic at the same time. We are not talking about a Hollywood movie tonight. We aren't discussing zombies, alien invasions, or nuclear winter. We are talking about next Tuesday. A simple grid failure, a cyber attack on the supply chain, a cascading collapse of infrastructure that starts quietly in one region and spreads like a spiderweb crack across a windshield. If you are standing in one of these 7 states when that crack reaches your doorstep, your expensive gear does not matter. Your survival plan does not matter, because the state itself has become the weapon against you. Before we reveal the list, we need to understand the rules of this game. I selected these 7 states based on 3 non-negotiable, quantifiable characteristics that determine life or death on a massive scale. The first factor is carrying capacity. This is the brutal math of survival. How many human beings can the land actually keep alive without any help from the outside world? Right now, you survive because trucks bring food, pipelines bring fuel, and massive pumps move water. But in a collapse, when the trucks stop and the pumps fail, can the land feed you? Most states have a negative carrying capacity, but the states on this list have a catastrophically negative one. We are talking about populations that are 50 times larger than what the local water and agriculture can support. When the external lifeline is cut, the clock starts ticking instantly. The second factor is geographic containment. When panic sets in, how many exits are there? Are you surrounded by open plains, or are you hemmed in by mountains that become impassable in winter? Is there an ocean at your back? Are there choke points where 10 lanes of traffic squeeze into 2? A survivable state offers options. A death trap state offers a cage. And the third, perhaps most critical factor, is dependency topology. How fragile is the skeleton of the state? Does it rely on complex, electricity-hungry infrastructure just to provide a glass of water? The more complex the system, the faster it breaks. And when it breaks, it doesn't just slow down, it stops completely. Every state we are about to discuss fails at least 2 of these tests. The top 3 fail all of them so completely that staying there during a collapse is not a strategy. It is a suicide pact. Let's begin the countdown with number 7. Florida, the peninsula that becomes a funnel. If you look at Florida on a map, you see a vacation paradise. But look closer, with the eyes of someone trying to escape, and you will see a nightmare geometry. It is a giant cul-de-sac. A peninsula has one defining fatal flaw: one way in, one way out. Florida is home to over 22 million people, the vast majority packed like sardines along the coastlines in massive urban centers like Miami, Tampa, and Orlando. Imagine the scenario. The grid goes down. Panic spreads. 22 million people realize they need to leave. Where do they go? They can't go east or west, that's the ocean. They can't go south. There's only one direction: north. Every highway, every back road, every evacuation route funnels into a narrowing corridor as you move toward Georgia. It acts exactly like a funnel, squeezing millions of desperate drivers into a tighter and tighter space. We have already seen a preview of this movie, and it was terrifying. Remember Hurricane Irma in 2017? The order was given to evacuate. Within hours, the interstates were not roads anymore. They were linear parking lots stretching for hundreds of miles. People ran out of gas while idling in gridlock. Gas stations ran dry instantly. Fights broke out on the shoulders of the highway, and that was with days of advanced warning, with police directing traffic, and with the rest of the country functioning normally to send aid. Now, imagine that same scenario without the warning. No police, no traffic lights, no fuel tankers refilling the stations. Just 22 million people in a state of raw panic, realizing simultaneously that they are trapped. Florida's carrying capacity is a disaster waiting to happen. You might see orange groves and sugarcane fields and think there is plenty of food. You would be wrong. Those crops cannot sustain a population of 22 million. They offer almost zero caloric density for long-term survival. The state imports nearly everything you eat. And then there is the water. South Florida exists on life support, relying on massive electric pumps and desalination plants to keep fresh water flowing and salt water out. When the grid dies, the taps run dry almost immediately. The surface water you might try to scavenge, often brackish, contaminated, or inaccessible. And finally, the silent killer: the heat. Florida is a steam bath for most of the year. Without air conditioning, modern glass and steel condos turn into solar ovens. The heat and humidity become lethal, especially for the elderly and the weak. In a grid-down scenario, Florida isn't just dangerous because of the chaos. It is dangerous because geography and climate conspire to trap you between a boiling ocean and a blocked highway, with absolutely nowhere to go. We leave the humidity of the South behind and head west to a landscape that looks rugged and resilient on the surface, but is actually hanging by a thread. Number 6, Arizona, the desert that requires a miracle. Arizona is home to 7.5 million people, with the vast majority clustering in the urban sprawls of Phoenix and Tucson. These aren't just cities. They are acts of defiance against nature. Phoenix is the 5th largest city in America, a shimmering metropolis of glass and concrete built directly inside the Sonoran Desert. Let's be brutally honest about the physics of this place. Summer temperatures here regularly scream past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Naturally occurring water is virtually non-existent for a population of this size. So, how do 1.7 million people survive here today? They survive because of a massive, complex, energy-hungry machine. The water that keeps Phoenix alive comes from the Colorado River, hundreds of miles away. It doesn't just flow there. It is pushed. It is lifted uphill by colossal pumping stations. It is channeled through aqueducts that stretch across the burning sand. It is treated in high-tech facilities. Every single drop of that water requires electricity to move. When the grid fails, the miracle ends. The pumps go silent. The canals stop flowing. The reservoirs begin to drain, and the taps in a million homes sputter and die. In Phoenix, the timeline for a total water collapse isn't measured in weeks. It's measured in hours. You are left standing in one of the hottest environments on the North American continent with no water coming out of the wall and no natural source to walk to. And then, the thermodynamics take over. Without the constant hum of air conditioning, those modern homes become solar ovens. The heat doesn't just make you uncomfortable, it kills you. It attacks the elderly first, then the children, then the healthy adults. You might think, I'll just drive out. But drive where? The highways, I-10, I-17, I-40, are long ribbons of asphalt stretching through nothingness. If you head east from Phoenix, you face 200 miles of scorching desert before you see anything resembling civilization. Head west, more desert. Head south, the complexities of the Mexican border. And to cross that dead zone, you need fuel. But remember, the grid is down, the refineries have stopped, the gas station pumps are lifeless. Your car is only as good as the gas currently in its tank. When that needle hits empty at mile marker 80, surrounded by cactus and heat shimmer, your vehicle stops being an escape pod and becomes a steel coffin. Arizona doesn't kill you with chaos. It kills you with the brutal, indifferent laws of nature. Now, let's travel thousands of miles across the ocean to a place that looks like heaven but hides a hellish reality. Number 5. Hawaii. The island that forgot it is an island. Hawaii is unique. It is the most isolated population center on the face of the earth. 2,500 miles of deep blue ocean separate it from the nearest continent. For 1.4 million people, this chain of islands is home. For millions of tourists, it is paradise. But in a collapse scenario, paradise is just a word for a beautifully decorated cage. Here is the statistic that should keep every Hawaiian awake at night. The state imports 85% of its food. Let that sink in. 85%. Nearly every bite of food eaten on those islands arrives on a ship. The modern supply chain is a delicate conveyor belt, and Hawaii is at the very end of the line. When the grid goes down, the ships stop coming. It's that simple. There is no backup plan. There is no neighboring state to borrow from. There are no trucks coming down the highway. The food supply on the islands will evaporate in less than a week. The grocery store shelves will be stripped bare in hours. And then what? You can't drive away. There is no road out. You are surrounded by 2,500 miles of impassable water. Unless you own a blue water-capable vessel, have mastered celestial navigation, and stored enough fuel and provisions for weeks at sea, you are not going anywhere. You are stuck. Fuel is the next domino. Hawaii has no oil production. Every drop of gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel is imported. When the tankers stop docking, the island's mobility dies. Generators sputter out. Emergency vehicles stop rolling. Even fishing boats, the one potential source of food, become useless without fuel. Hawaii isn't a death trap because of violence, although desperation will surely breed conflict. It is a death trap because of distance. It is a slow-motion drowning, where the realization that you are cut off from the world sets in just as the hunger begins. Moving back to the mainland, we find another monument to human arrogance that becomes a nightmare when the lights go out. Number 4. Nevada, the Mirage. Nevada is home to 3.2 million souls, and 2/3 of them are clustered in a single glittering oasis, Las Vegas, the city of lights, the city of sin, a city built in the Mojave Desert, where the sky yields only 4 inches of rain a year and the ground bakes at 105 degrees. Las Vegas is not a natural settlement. It is a magic trick. It exists almost entirely because of one colossal piece of engineering, the Hoover Dam. The dam provides the power. The dam provides the water. The dam sustains the illusion that millions of people can live in a wasteland. In a grid-down scenario, that illusion shatters instantly. Even if the dam continues to generate power physically, the distribution grid, the substations, the transformers, the lines, is vulnerable. When the power stops reaching the city, the pumps that lift water from Lake Mead fail. The pressure drops, the fountains stop dancing, and then the faucets stop dripping. 2 million people will suddenly find themselves trapped in a concrete bowl in the middle of a desert with no water source, and just like Arizona, the air conditioning dies. The glass towers of the Strip become greenhouses, cooking everything inside. Nevada's carrying capacity is functionally zero. The state produces almost no food. Every meal served at every buffet, and every dinner table was trucked in from somewhere else. When the diesel stops flowing, Las Vegas starves in 3 days. And the escape? It's a horror show. Look at the map. I-15 runs north to Salt Lake and south to LA. Both directions force you to cross over 100 miles of empty, unforgiving desert with zero services. US 95 runs northwest into even deeper isolation. If panic sets in, and it will, those highways will become parking lots under a relentless sun. Sitting in a gridlocked car in the Mojave Desert without AC and without water isn't an evacuation strategy. It's just a tragic way to end the story. Nevada isn't just dependent, it is existentially fragile. It is a state that forgot it was a desert until the moment the machinery stopped humming. We have looked at funnels, deserts, and islands. Now we turn our eyes to the places where millions of people live on top of each other, believing that safety lies in numbers. They are wrong. Number 3, New Jersey, the density trap. If you look at a map of New Jersey, you aren't looking at a state, you are looking at a human cage. This is the most densely populated state in America, packing an average of 1,263 people into every single square mile. To put that terrifying number into perspective, the national average is just 94. Density is a wonderful thing when the lights are on. It means efficiency. It means the grocery store is around the corner and the hospital is 5 minutes away. But in a collapse, density is a force multiplier for chaos. It turns every problem into a catastrophe. New Jersey's carrying capacity isn't just low, it is laughable. Yes, they call it the Garden State. And yes, there are blueberry farms and tomato fields. But let's be real. Those farms occupy a tiny fraction of the land. The vast majority of the state is concrete, asphalt, and suburban sprawl. It is a mouth that needs to be fed by thousands of trucks crossing the borders every single day. When those trucks stop, 9.3 million people are suddenly trapped in an area the size of a postage stamp, fighting for resources that disappeared in the first 48 hours. Warehouses will be looted instantly. Distribution centers will become battlegrounds. There is no buffer zone here. There is no empty land to retreat to. The water situation is a ticking time bomb. New Jersey relies heavily on pumping stations to move water from reservoirs and aquifers to millions of homes, many of them in high-rise buildings. When the grid fails, gravity takes over. If you live above the 6th floor, your taps run dry immediately. You are left trapping rainwater or drinking from sources you wouldn't touch in a nightmare. But the real horror of New Jersey is the escape. Look at its geography. It is wedged tight. To the east, you have the Atlantic Ocean. To the west, the Delaware River. To the north, the impenetrable sprawl of New York City. To the south, Philadelphia. Every single way out is a choke point. Bridges, tunnels, narrow highways like the Turnpike and the Garden State Parkway. These roads are parking lots on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. Imagine them when 9.3 million people panic at once. The math is simple and horrifying. You are not getting out. The evacuation will stall before it even begins. The highways will become linear graveyards of abandoned cars. New Jersey doesn't kill you with harsh weather or rugged terrain. It kills you with crowding. It is the ultimate density trap. Number 2, California, the coastal illusion. California, the Golden State, the land of dreams, home to 39 million people and the 5th largest economy on the planet. It projects an image of innovation, progress, and resilience. But scratch the surface, and you find a state that is completely, terrifyingly unsustainable. California. Survival is a fiction maintained by one of the most complex engineering feats in history, the aqueducts. Southern California, where 24 million people live, is naturally a semi-arid desert. It has almost no local water. Every glass you drink, every shower you take, relies on water being pumped hundreds of miles over mountains from the Colorado River or the north. These pumps are leviathans. They consume massive amounts of electricity. When the grid dies, the pumps stop. The aqueducts go still. The reservoirs drain. Within a week, Los Angeles and San Diego aren't just thirsty. They are dying. And what about food? You might say, but California grows everything. That is true. The Central Valley is an agricultural powerhouse. But here is the catch. California grows food for the world, not for itself. The supply chain is designed to export, not to feed the locals. There are no massive stockpiles of grain in downtown LA. The cities survive on just-in-time delivery. When the diesel trucks stop rolling, the cities starve just as fast as anywhere else. Then, nature closes the trap. To the east, you have the Sierra Nevada mountains and the brutal Mojave Desert. To the west, the Pacific Ocean. To the south, a border that will instantly become a conflict zone. To the north, hundreds of miles of difficult terrain. The only way out is through the highways, the I-5, the I-10, the 101. These arteries are already clogged with the blood of daily commerce. In a collapse, they clot instantly. You aren't evacuating 39 million people. You are just moving them from their homes to their cars, where they will sit until they run out of gas, water, or patience. And we haven't even talked about the fire. California's cities are built in fire-prone ecosystems. When the water pressure dies and the firefighters can't communicate or mobilize, small sparks turn into infernos. Without aerial support, without water, the fires will burn until they run out of fuel. And in the dense suburbs of LA, the fuel is your home. California isn't a death trap because of bad management. It is a death trap because it is an artificial paradise built on a life support system that requires constant electricity to function. Number 1, Texas, the independent myth. And finally, we arrive at number 1, Texas, the state that prides itself on standing alone. 30 million people. A culture built on self-reliance, oil, and toughness. You might think Texas is the safest place to be. You would be wrong. Texas is the most dangerous trap of them all, precisely because it believes it is invincible. The danger starts with the grid. Texas operates its own power grid, ERCOT, isolated from the rest of the nation to avoid federal regulation. In normal times, this is a point of pride. In a collapse, it is a fatal flaw. When the Texas grid goes down, and we have seen it happen, there is no backup. There is no neighbor to flip a switch and save you. Remember February 2021? A simple winter storm brought the state to its knees. Millions lost power. Hundreds froze to death in their homes. Water pipes burst. And that was just a temporary weather event. In a true prolonged SHTF scenario, the lights go out and they stay out. Without power, water distribution across this massive state fails. Pumps stop. Treatment plants go offline. In the searing heat of a Texas summer, where temperatures routinely scream past 100 degrees with suffocating humidity, buildings become uninhabitable death traps within 48 hours. Without AC, without fans, the old and the young die first. But the real nightmare in Texas isn't the heat. It is the human element. Texas has a unique culture. It is heavily armed and fiercely independent. When the water stops flowing and the food runs out, that spirit of self-reliance can quickly mutate into territorial defense. Texas has a carrying capacity that could support a population, but not 30 million people. Not without modern, mechanized agriculture that depends on diesel and electricity. If we go back to pre-industrial methods, Texas can maybe feed 5 million. That leaves 25 million people who are suddenly excess population. When those 25 million people realize they are starving, they won't just sit down and wait. They will move. They will fight. They will compete for every drop of water and every can of beans. And because the state is so vast and isolated, there is nowhere to go. The neighboring states, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, will close their borders to protect their own dwindling resources. You aren't evacuating to safety, you are evacuating into a war zone. Texas is the number 1 death trap not because it is weak, but because it is brittle. It is oversized, isolated, and dangerously complacent. It is a giant that falls the hardest when its legs are cut out from under it. Closing thoughts. All 7 of these states share a fatal DNA. They have optimized their societies for efficiency and profit in normal times, at the complete expense of resilience in abnormal times. They have built systems that work beautifully as long as everything goes right. But the moment one thing goes wrong, the moment the inputs stop, the fragility is exposed. You cannot grow food in days. You cannot find water in hours. You cannot evacuate millions of people through choke points that are already gridlocked. So, I leave you with this question. If the lights go out tonight and don't come back on tomorrow, are you standing on solid ground, or are you standing in a trap that is waiting to spring? The choice to move, to plan, to reposition yourself, that choice is still yours, but only for now.